Positive. Oh, Rabbi Karsh, I
Yeah,
have a question that I'm not clear on.
yeah,
We were talking about circumcision,
yeah.
and now we were talking about if I do not perform the positive mitzvah of circumcision. Now, is that by itself considered to be a violation for which I am subject to the death penalty? One of the unusual situations, like bringing the, I think those are the only two, bringing the Korban Pesach.
Right. My understanding is you only violate it if you died without. You know what? Let's look at that, because
The
there
thing
is
is
a
that
yeah.
we talked about abnegation of mitzvahs. Now
Right. No,
people
that
use
was the fear of the.
abnegation, like in Safari, they tend to associate abnegation as being something sort of specific to
I
positive
know,
mitzvahs.
an act, like an act.
It's an abnegation, but
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but it's not. He doesn't say that you violate
Right.
positive mitzvah. He says that you abnegate.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure, what I didn't check the text, but is it that
You know. Right. There's like the word. There's one word, avera, la'avor, and there's another word, levatel.
right?
So levatel, la'avor tends to be for negative commandments when you transgress. So you've done something specific that you weren't supposed to do. Levatel was you had an opportunity for a positive commandment and you didn't do it.
Okay,
Um, but it still seems like there needs to be a moment, like a time frame. But I mean, my memory is that you don't actually, ultimately, it's the person themselves. Let's say whoever was responsible for the mitzvah at the time, if they never perform it. So like, let's say you're supposed to perform it on day 8 and you make a choice not to do it on day 8. You could have, but you make a choice not to do it on day 8. And you decide you're going to wait till day 12 because it's a more convenient time. So are you considered to have, been mavatal that mitzvah? Also, somebody just lent me a book written by the Rambam's son, Avram ben Rambam, which looks fascinating. Hamaspik, it's called Hamaspik. It's a book about serving God, and it looks fascinating. And I was reading just the forward by the translator. So this is it's just an annoying thing which has become common, which we're experiencing with this Rambam. I'm pretty sure. I don't know for sure, but it feels like it, which is translating from the translation as opposed to translating from the original. This has become apparently accepted. There's somebody who translated the Ramban's commentary. Oh no, Rav Shimshon Fol Hirsch's commentary on the Torah. And if you look carefully, he translated it from the Hebrew. He doesn't translate it from the original German.
Arabic. Oh, German. Okay.
It was written in German, but he doesn't translate it from the original German. He translates it from the Hebrew. It's just frustrating to me that this is considered acceptable, that we're getting translations from translations. Now, I know these translators may have done the original translator may have done a really good job. But still, it's a translation from a translation. So it was interesting to read this guy's forward, because he said that originally that's what he did. Originally, he translated from a Hebrew translation, because the book written by the Rambam's son was written in Arabic, Judeo-Arabic, which means it's written with Hebrew letters, but it's Arabic. And Arabic itself has gone through transitions. So this is what's called classical Arabic. There's like classical Arabic, middle Arabic, and modern Arabic. So this is from classical Arabic, so it was translated into Hebrew, and then he's translating from the Hebrew translation. But then, so what he said is that's what he did at first. But he met somebody, this rabbi in LA, a Sephardic rabbi, I think originally from Algeria, who knew Arabic. And he realized that without understanding the Arabic, he's not going to produce a clear result, the kind of result he wanted. And there were many things that were unclear in the Hebrew. So with the help of that man and Arabic dictionaries and just trying, suddenly deciding he needs to know Arabic, he went back over this thing, and he tried to clarify those areas that weren't clear, but he also had this man who knew Arabic look through each one of his translations and compare. He would read his translation, and the man would be reading the Arabic, and they'd go through it that way. And then, so he felt like he was able to get to a much better translation. And I'm always hesitant when you have, there might have been an Arabic word that was more clear for what he was trying to express, but once it went into the Hebrew, it becomes somewhat unclear. It may not be at all, but it's always a possibility. But let's see if we can find something here, because there was a practice during Greek times and Roman times where people would reverse their circumcision. That also could be, you might characterize that as being mavatal, the circumcision. They would pull skin up, and it wouldn't look like you were circumcised. And apparently, because in Roman and Greek times, men would often appear in front of other men naked. So if it was considered unfashionable in certain circles to be circumcised, then people were tempted to do this reversal. I don't know exactly how they did it, but so that also, you might wonder, is that what it's talking about also? Is that included in this prohibition and the kares level penalty? So let's just see if we can see here. I'm just going to try it and see what happens.
Abnegation does not always, like if you have a positive mitzvah for the Rambam, they'll say that you didn't do it. Your abnegation, it consisted in the fact that you didn't do anything when you
but there has to be a point of definitive not doing. So let's say saying the Shema in the morning. So there's a time to say the Shema. Once you got to the end of the saying of the Shema, you could say you didn't fulfill the mitzvah.
Yes.
Let's say the Daled Minim. So there's a mitzvah to do it on the first day. Once the first day passed and you hadn't done it, you could say that you've abnegated the mitzvah. But
because of something you didn't do.
Right. And that seems like what we're talking about. You didn't do circumcision, or somebody who was responsible for it didn't do circumcision. So, but here, technically, you would assume that you have until the person passes away.
Oh, in the case of, Mila, Yeah, but what I was interested in basically is that is there like an additional prohibition? I guess there is. There is
It's not.
there's a prohibition of not being
No, but
circumcised.
he's not gonna. It's not gonna be listed as a prohibition. It's this. That's a positive commandment. Positive commandments. You transgress a positive commandment when you don't fulfill it. But the
Okay,
question is, when does?
but I thought that there was also a commandment not to be uncircumcised.
I don't think so. But let's see what we.
Okay, because I would understand why the Rambam, because according to the Rambam, the negation of a positive mitzvah is not a negative mitzvah.
Right. Right. Beginning the laws of Mila. Problem is how to search for this. Let's try a different one. I always put that word halacha in so I don't get Christian sites.
Difference between father and mother Jew who would like to circumcise a son. Huh.
Right.
Just like see that yesterday.
Yeah. We could look at that too. Just trying to see here. They got some Christian in there. Okay. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Right. Let's just go to the Rambam. We end up back in Sfaria, whether we end up back. All right. This is interesting. Circumcision may be performed by anyone, even a person who's himself not circumcised. A slave, a woman, or a minor may perform the circumcision if an adult male is not present. A Gentile, however, should not be allowed to perform the circumcision at all. Nevertheless, if he does, there's no need for a second circumcision.
Wow.
How do you like that? So why is it that we require hatafas dam bris if a surgeon did it and maybe it still needs to be done for the mitzvah. It has to be. It still has to. All right, we'll have to look back at that too. Okay. There's a blessing. All right, it says here, anyone who breaks the covenant of Abraham, our patriarch, and leaves his foreskin uncircumcised, or although he was circumcised, causes it to appear extended, does not have a portion in the world to come, despite the fact that he has studied Torah and performed good deeds. Come and see how severe a matter of circumcision is. Moses, our teacher, was not granted even temporary respite from fulfilling this mitzvah. That's the case with Zipporah. The Torah mentions only 3 covenants regarding all its mitzvahs. These are the words of the covenant that God commanded, in addition to the covenant that he established with you in Horeb. You are standing today to enter a covenant with God, your Lord. So there's the covenant in Devarim, there's a covenant at Horeb, which is Sinai, and there's a covenant with Avram. In contrast, 13 covenants were established with Abraham, our patriarch, with regard to circumcision. What happened there? That's the end of it? All right, so far, the Rambam says that it sounds like it eventually falls on the person themselves. Let's say the father doesn't do it, and then the child grows up. Who is the one who gets the kares penalty, the father or the child? So here, the language is how great the circumcision both are. Oh, wait a second. Anyone who breaks the covenant of Avram, our patriarch, and leaves his foreskin uncircumcised, or although he's circumcised, causes it to appear extended, does not have a portion of the world to come. All right, let's look at that. Let's see if I can get that. No. All right, so this is, where did it say it was again? It was Tshuva 3:6. Let's start with 5. When a person's sins are being weighed against his merit, God does not count a sin that was committed only once or twice. A sin is only counted if it was committed 3 or more times. Should it be found that even those sins committed more than 3 times outweigh a person's merits, the sins that were committed twice or less are also added. He's judged for all his sins. If his merits are equal to or greater than the amount of his sins committed, which were committed more than 3 times, God forgives his sins one after another. the third sin is forgiven because it is considered as a first sin. For the two previous sins were already forgiven. Similarly, after the third sin is forgiven, the fourth sin is considered a first sin and is forgiven according to the same principle. We'll just take that as fact. The same pattern is continued until all sins are concluded. When does the above apply? In regard to an individual, as can be inferred by Job, all these things God will do twice or three times with a man. However, in regard to a community, retribution for the first, second, and third sin is held in abeyance as applied by, for the three sins of Israel I will withhold retribution, but for the fourth I will not withhold it. When reckoning of their merits and sins and made according to the above pattern, the reckoning begins with the fourth sin. As mentioned above, a Benoni is one whose scale is equally balanced between merit and sin. However, if among his sins is the neglect of a mitzvah of tefillin, to the extent that he never wore them even once, he's judged according to his sins. He will nevertheless be granted a portion of the world to come. Similarly, all the wicked whose sins are greater than their merits are judged according to their sins, but they're granted a portion in the world to come. For all Israel have a share in the world to come. As it states, your people are righteous, they shall inherit the land forever. The land is an analogy alluding to the land of life, the world to come. Similarly, the pious of the nations of the world have a portion of the world to come. The following individuals do not have a portion of the world to come. Rather, their souls are cut off and they are judged for their great wickedness and sins forever. The Minim, the Apikorsim, those who deny Torah, those who deny the resurrection of the dead and coming of the Redeemer, those who rebel, those who cause the many to sin, those who separate themselves from community, those who proudly commit the sins as in public, like Yoakim did, those who betray Jews to Gentile authorities, those who cast fear upon the people for reasons other than the service of God, murderers, slanderers, one who extends his foreskin so as not to appear circumcised. So that's it. That's where he's talking about it. That's all right. We did this once, and that's very profound just to read. I'm sorry that we're just reading it for that purpose, but you'd want a lot of explanations there. I'm going to try this one more time. If we don't get it, part of my problem is once we end, my brain just moves on to the next thing. All right.
Abramson.
Abramson? You saw the next? Yeah, we'll look at, let's see. If this isn't good, we'll go to that one. This is my covenant, circumcise all your males. The male that does not circumcise his flesh, that soul shall be cut off from its nation. So the pasuk itself makes it sound like it's the guy himself. In an earlier essay in discussing the flood, I introduced the notion of inherence, the idea that God's rewards and punishment are built into the scheme of this world. The punishment of Kores can be found later in the Torah as a consequence for violating any one of a number of prohibitions. However, there's something almost unique about its application in the case of Brit Milah, and therein may lie the solution to the inherence perspective here. All mitzvahs can be broken down binary fashion in a number of ways. We're familiar with the divisions of mitzvahs benoded l'makom, mitzvot whose realm is exclusive to the relationship between man and God, and mitzvot ben adam l'chavero, mitzvahs affecting interpersonal relationships. We are also familiar with mitzvos hatluyos ba'aretz, mitzvos which are agriculturally driven, and mitzvos she'enan tluyos ba'aretz, and mitzvos which are not They are independent of the land. We also recognize the division of mitzvos aseh as man grama, mitzvos of commission, which can only be fulfilled at a set time, and mitzvos aseh shelo as man grama, mitzvos of positive commandments, mitzvos of commission, whose fulfillment is not limited by time constraints. The most basic division with which we are familiar is, of course, mitzvot aseh, mitzvos of commission, what we call positive commandments, like eating matzah, shaking a lulav, giving tzedakah, and mitzvot lo taseh, mitzvos of omission, which would be avoiding mixing milk and meat, or avoiding creative work on Shabbos, not turning a deaf ear to a fellow in need. It is a rule of thumb that punishments, whether administered by an earthly tribunal or by a heavenly court, are only meted out for a specific violation of a mitzvah lo taseh. This is biblically. So biblically, you only get punished for transgressing a negative commandment. This is true in a technical sense, even though we do not have inside information as to how each individual is judged by God. Within the framework of heavenly punishments, karet mita bidei shamayim, this rule generally holds true. Only violations of mitzvot lo taseh, negative commandments, carry the consequence of punishment. It is clear that failing to fulfill a mitzvah aseh, a positive commandment, demands kapara, atonement, which is the purpose of the alotdafna. So, for instance, there is a offering called the olah, the elevation offering, which one of the reasons it's brought is a person neglected to fulfill a positive commandment. So there is a requirement for some kind of repentance and cleansing, but there isn't a punishment from the courts or by God. There are only two mitzvahs, two positive commandments, whose non-fulfillment results in a formal punishment: Brit Milah and partaking of the Pesach offering. In both cases, the punishment is correct. When two mitzvahs command their own category, sui generis, two questions are raised. What makes them unique? And what features do they have in common? By investigating the special nature of Am Yisrael, we can hopefully discover the nature of these two exceptional mitzvot. Membership in any group provides companionship and a sense of shared purpose. In return, the members occasionally must sacrifice their individual desires and needs. There is invariably an equation between the extent to which one negates oneself towards the group and the sense of the sharedness within that group. The Torah makes demands upon an individual in his daily life, a multitude of restrictions, a higher business ethic, and a theocentric sensitivity. In order to claim membership in Am Yisrael, however, it's not sufficient to be an ethically aware or theologically oriented individual. To be a Jew means joining the Jewish nation. That means sharing the goals, dreams, joys, and sorrows of an age-old and forever young people. It means a shared history and a common destiny. Imagine someone living a life of halacha today, insensitive on the one hand to the glorious rebirth of the state of Israel, happy Yom Ha'atzmaut, while apathetic to the high rate of assimilation right here in America. They would be missing a central crowning feature of Am Yisrael, community. Note Rambam's formulation regarding someone who's not involved in communal concerns. Someone who separates himself from community, even though he does not transgress any violations, who isolates himself from the congregation of Israel, not fulfilling mitzvahs among them, not involving himself in their troubles, not fasting during their fast days. Rather, he goes merrily on his merry way like one of the non-Jews. It's as if he were not one of them, and he has no portion in the world to come. That was in that same chapter, a few chapters down. Indeed, all of our fixed liturgical petitions are in the plural number, indicating a communal request. Grant us knowledge, redeem us, heal us, until we're all healed. Not one of us is truly healed. A member of our group suffers, and we suffer along with him. A friend is bereaved, we are sad, not just for his loss, for it is our loss too, and therein lies his greatest comfort. According to the Ran, Rabbeinu Nisim, in Rosh Hashanah, this same reasoning may be applied to the justification for reciting brachot on behalf of others. See the sugya there at 29a. One who refuses to participate in rituals that define one as a member of the group is surely cut off from the group. This is a natural result of his actions. Not participating in the most fundamental group right is active denial of membership. There are two elements of sharedness that are central to membership in Am Yisrael: shared past and shared future. Rav Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik Zatzal referred to common history as Brit Goral. So there is Brit Goral, which is like the covenant of a Goral is like a destiny, something like that. And Brit Yehud as an expression of common destiny. Oh no. So Brit Goral is not destiny. Anyways, he had terms for two different kinds of so Brit Goral, he is saying, is common history, and Brit Yehud is common destiny. All right. Membership in the national demands both. Our bonds are rooted in a sense of common past, whereas our natural venture, our joint project and mission is sourced in a sense of common destiny. We propose that each Mitzvot Aseh, Brit Milah, and Korban Pesach represent one of these perspectives. That the Korban Pesach is symbolic of a common history is self-evident and will be explored in greater detail in our Shir and Parshat Bo. That the covenant of circumcision symbolized common destiny, that needs some explanation. The Midrash relates a conversation between Rabbi Akiva and a Roman philosopher, Turnus Rufus. Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva, whose deeds are greater, man or God's? This actually happens in a marketplace. And he says to him, which deeds are greater, man's or God's? Rabbi Akiva answered that man's were greater. Turnus Rufus further asked Rabbi Akiva why Jews circumcised their males. Rabbi Akiva explained, I knew that you would ask that. In fact, that's part involved in his first thing. And that is why I first answered that man's deeds are greater than God's. Rabbi Akiva then produced wheat stalks and cakes and demonstrated, these are God's stalks and these are man's cakes. Aren't these cakes finer than the stalks? Turnus Rufus then asked, if God desires circumcision, why isn't the child born circumcised? To which Rabbi Akiva responded, why does the umbilicus come out with him, with which his mother has to cut? As for what you asked, why isn't the child born circumcised? Because God gave Israel the mitzvahs for the sole purpose of their participation. In other words, God wants man to participate in creation. He doesn't want man to just be the recipient. Although Rabbi Akiva and Turnus Rufus were arguing about circumcision, a sore point from the perspective of the Greco-Roman culture of the gymnasium, the dispute cuts much deeper. The underlying challenge to the reigning culture, then and now implicit in the mitzvah of bris milah, is a statement about the role of man and the relationship between man and God. The Greco-Roman perspective, represented by Turnus Rufus, understands man as a creature of God, another link in a chain of creation. However, the creation as such is divine and not subject to man's interference. The cult of hedons maintains that man's job is to enjoy the world on its own terms. It is not man's role to tamper with creation or to try to better it. That approach, presuming some kinship with the Creator, it was only the source of much of the pleasure principle inherent in the culture. It is also the Weltanschauung supporting the pedestal of athletic competition of physical beauty. As one writer put it, the Greeks found holiness in beauty, where the Jews found beauty in holiness. That's nice. He should quote that. The Greeks found holiness in beauty, where the Jews found beauty in holiness. Rabbi Akiva obviously represents the Jewish perspective. Man is not just another creature. Man is potential action made in the image of the Creator. Hence, man is a creator. The mitzvahs were given to Am Yisrael so Am Yisrael can realize the Torah's goal for all of mankind, to be partners with God in an ongoing process of creation. Any judge who executes a perfectly true judgment is considered as if he was made partner with God in the act of creation. Proper judgment is not a continuation of the proper balance achieved in creation. The judge is carrying out the divine mandate of creation. As we explained in last week's discussion, when mankind sufficiently blurred the distinctions and mangled the order of creation, the order itself was reversed, allowing the supernal waters and the nether waters to commingle, producing a flood. The most integral and constant expression of that destiny, of our mission to improve our Maisa Bereshis and to continue to bring order into a chaotic world around us, is circumcision. It is as if we are introducing the young child to his life goal by way of example. Your job is to create. Be not satisfied with creation as you find it. Imitate God, for it is in his image you were made. Create, build, achieve mastery over the world. And by the way, you better start with achieving mastery over yourself. This is the destiny of Am Yisrael, active participants in ongoing creation. We do not rest from our socio-religious goal, tikkun olam, befriending the heart with no companion, mending our torn fences of creation. This is our mandate. The covenant obligates us to work with our partner, capital P. The circumcision symbolizes the nature of that work. One who refuses to participate in the rituals that define one as a member of the group is surely cut off from the group. This is the effect of his actions. Not participating in the most fundamental group rite is an act of denial of membership. Karet is not an arbitrary designed punishment. It is the natural result of one's rejection of full membership in Am Yisrael. But it seems like he's understanding this, and it seems like the Rambam also is understanding this as something that happens after you die. The karet part. In other words, not having a place in the world to come seems to how they're interpreting it. Although it is true that if somebody is not circumcised, they cannot partake of the Korban Pesach. So there is a this world consequence and a next world consequence. But again, everything we're seeing so far seems to be about the person himself, that eventually, if he's not circumcised and he knew better and he's not circumcised, that's when the penalty would kick in.